everybody. Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, 6 p.m. So that means it is time for Me Powered with Rhonda, and where you find out that everything you need is already inside of you. Now, tonight we've got a great show. If this is your first time visiting this show or listening, we're going to let you know all the different ways that you can hear the show or tune in. So, Lady J, tell them how they can tune in.
If this is your first time tuning into the show or to JQLM Radio and you would like to share with your family, friends, and followers on all the different ways that they can tune in, be sure to tell them to download the JQLM Radio app on their Apple or Android devices. You can also listen live to JQLM Radio 24/7, 365 via Amazon Alexa, TuneIn app, the Stream and Simple Radio app, and a host of other platforms of which you can find located on our website, where you can also listen live at egoentertainmentnet.com. Also, don't forget to follow, like, and share us. We do follow back. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JQLM Radio. You can also connect with Ego Entertainment Network at EgoEntNet. That's EgoEntNet on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter also. Also, connect with us on LinkedIn at Ego Entertainment Network. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our YouTube channel, Ego TV Network, at youtube.com/Ego TV Network.
All right, and you can follow me as well on several different platforms. And the way that you can follow me is on Instagram. I am at me.powered. Also, everybody knows me as Rhonda TNATL. That is my fellow following that has been with me for the long time. That is the Rhonda's Tribe Positive Crew people. Facebook, we've got a Me Powered page as well. And we've got a website that is getting ready to be released. It is mepowered.co. So make sure you're on the lookout for that, because that is going to have a lot of great stuff in it. So make sure you follow me and let everybody else know. All right, so tonight, before I get started, I just want to say I found out the most exciting information the other day. Today is June 7th, and I found out that Me Powered with Rhonda is the #1 show on the entire network for the month of May. So thank you guys. This is all because of you, because of the listeners, because of the shares, because of the guests. And I could not do this without you. So I'm so thrilled. I'm so excited. I'm so honored. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm still kind of new on this network, but we got the #1 show, baby. We're #1 on the network. So telling you, Me Powered with Rhonda is where you want to be at. So if you got a story, you definitely want to reach out to me so I can get your story on the show. If you want to advertise or sponsor, you definitely want to hit it up, because, hey, we're the #1 show on the network. So take advantage of that. And I believe that we're going to keep the momentum going. So just had to say that and say thank you before I started anything, because I would not be here where we are if it was not for you. So thank you guys. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I'm looking forward to doing great things. All right. So tonight, I've got a unique show tonight. Now, it is just me, myself, and I. Lady J may or may not chime in. We'll see. But the topic for this evening is going to be all about PTSD. So it's PTSD Invisible Wounds, because June is National PTSD Awareness Month. Now, June is going to be also known for a lot more things, but right now we're focusing on PTSD. Now, PTSD is near and dear to my heart, because those of you who know me know that I am a counselor, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm a mentor, a trainer, and my specialty is trauma. And my next specialties are abuse and addiction. And one thing that I find out is a lot of my clients are dealing with PTSD in some way, shape, or form, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, does that mean it's regular stress, regular trauma? You know, what differentiates PTSD from general anxiety disorder, or just having a fear of different things, or falling into a depression? There's a lot of things that actually will indicate PTSD. So tonight we're going to be talking about all things PTSD, and we're going to cover the spectrum. We're going to cover many, many different scenarios of how one develops PTSD, where it comes from, and what to do and how to cope with it. And I'm going to give you some tools and some resources as well. So, if you have ever dealt with any type of trauma, this is a show for you. If you're struggling with nightmares, if you're struggling with flashbacks, if you're struggling with anything that is intrusive, um, anxiety, depression, all those things, this is a show for you. And not only is it the show for you, it's the show for somebody else. So make sure you listen, make sure you share this, and, pay attention because we got a lot of good stuff. And, the chat room is open. So if you are listening on Facebook, you can go ahead and type a comment in if you have a question, and I can bring the question up on the screen and answer your question directly. And if you want to be anonymous, you can just, say, hey, you want to be anonymous or whatever. And we can, get it to where we don't post your comment and your picture, but Lady J will let me know what the comment was and we can talk about it because, we need to talk about this. And so tonight I am welcoming all of you to join in this conversation. And I'm looking forward to this being interactive. Okay. So let's get started with some statistics. Now, I don't want to bore y'all, but there are some statistics that we need to know about PTSD. So here's some interesting things, some interesting facts, okay? Before we get started into the how and the why it came about and what to do and everything, some things that may surprise you. So, and this is as of June 2022. So this is very recent. This is, recent statistics, okay? They're very up to date because we are in June. Excuse me. So here we go. 6% or 3 in every 50 American adults will have gone through PTSD at some point in their lives. That's one stat. The next one is, now this is a surprising one. The leading cause of PTSD is sexual violence. And that takes up about 33%, with 94% of rape victims developing symptoms of PTSD. Sexual trauma is a key indicator of PTSD. And during the first 2 weeks after their traumatic experience, if somebody has been raped, 94% of those who have been raped will develop symptoms of PTSD within 2 weeks after the assault. So we're gonna open that up. PTSD is the most prevalent among American adults between the ages of 45 and 49 years old, and women have a lifetime PTSD prevalent rate of 9.7% compared to 3.6% in men. So women are more prone to PTSD. Now, that doesn't mean that the men don't have PTSD. It just means women are more, and that's probably because they report it more, just being honest with you, because a lot of times men don't talk, men don't report it. So according to these statistics, women have a higher prevalence of PTSD. Now, getting into military, civilian women have a lifetime prevalence of 8% compared to 13.4%, almost double among military women. And 11 to 23% of veterans experience PTSD. And this is a very sad statistic, but about 17.2 veterans die by suicide each day, with veterans being 1.5 times more likely to die by suicide than civilians. And that's because of PTSD. All right. So those are just some beginning statistics, but it shows you the gamut of what could cause PTSD. Now, sexual assault is number one reason, but then military, veterans, those who have served in war, that's going to be a big factor. But here's the thing. If you ever do a search on homeless people and, and you do the demographic on homeless people, there is a very large number of homeless people that are veterans that are dealing with PTSD and they're on the street. So PTSD is something serious that we need to talk about. Now, PTSD affects adults, children, adolescents. There's no age that escapes PTSD because when we grow up, those traumatic events that happen to us as a child, All right. And I'm not talking military right now, just talking being a kid growing up in your household, whatever you grew up in. Whenever somebody has traumatic events that happen in their household or in their upbringing, they have a chance to develop PTSD. So, what determines if somebody's going to develop PTSD? Well, that depends on the individual. It depends on what the event is and how that person interprets it. And I want to just take a second and explain that you don't have to have something like, excuse me, I've been talking all day. So let me get some water. Hold on one second. Let me slow myself down. Here we go. Let me slow myself down and just talk to y'all. You don't have to have something what most people would consider major, like somebody has to be raped or somebody has to be coming back from war to develop PTSD. Post traumatic stress disorder is any post is after. So any after effect stress related to trauma, and it becomes a disorder when it becomes unmanageable. Now, how somebody is diagnosed with PTSD is by a couple of things. Number one is the number one way to determine if you are dealing with PTSD is avoidance. If you're doing something to avoid a situation or a ritual, that's an indicator you might be dealing with PTSD. So, what do I mean by that? Well, all I can do is give myself as an example. I have gone through a lot of things growing up. One of them being sexual abuse and, trauma. So for me, if somebody's being sexually assaulted or abused or raped, you may notice difference in their behavior. You may notice that they may dress covering themselves up all of a sudden. You may notice they may not want to go around certain people. They avoid the situation as best they can. Avoidance is the number one indicator for somebody possibly dealing with PTSD. So if you have somebody in your family that used to interact with people, used to be social, used to be engaged, and now they're withdrawn and now they don't really want to go somewhere or they don't want to be around certain people, that's a red flag as to why. Why do they not want to be in that interaction with somebody again? Something could have happened that is, as a protective mechanism, we're trying to avoid that because, of course, we don't want to be re-traumatized or hurt again over and over and over. So that's the number one thing. Now, secondly, is if something is invasive. And what I mean by invasive, also intrusive. Intrusive or invasive means like if you go to sleep and you have a nightmare, that's intrusive. Or if you're in the middle of the day and you have a flashback, that's intrusive because it intrudes and invades on your current day, your current frame of being, your mindset and everything. And it intrudes. Those thoughts intrude. Those pictures intrude. They invade your current space and they disrupt you. That's another indication of somebody dealing with PTSD. So two primary things to look to see if somebody is dealing with PTSD is number one, avoidance, and number two, if they're dealing with anything intrusive or invasive to where you can't quite seem to shut it off. All right. A lot of people, for example, veterans, they, okay, if you were out in the field and, they're around gunfire all the time, sometimes people will be triggered by a sound that sounds like a gunshot, and they'll automatically flash back or revert back or regress back to the time that they were serving on the field because that sound is an indicator of a time that they were fighting for their life, literally. And, when we fear for our life, then that is also going to create a proclivity to have PTSD. So in the case of rape, for example, if somebody is being raped, you're fearing for your life, okay? And or if somebody is being told, don't move or I'll hurt somebody, like in my case, I had my mother's boyfriend. I was 12 years old, and he said he would come into my room And he would say to me that if I said anything or if I moved, that he would hurt my sister. So that was enough to paralyze me and to allow that to happen. Not that I could have fought him off anyway, but that fear, I feared more for what would happen to my sister than what was happening to me at that time. Now, that definitely created PTSD for me, and it took me a very long time to work through that. A lot of times, when people have any kind of sexual trauma, you've got different types of symptoms of PTSD that will follow along with it. Um, Another thing with PTSD, let me pull this up, is so how do you know if you're dealing with PTSD? Well, number one, if you are reliving the symptoms over and over again, and you can't quite seem to go forward. You're just kind of ruminating over them. It's just playing over in your mind and it's got you stuck. That is a good indication that you're dealing with PTSD, because triggers are indicators of trauma. And it's called a trigger because it sets off a bunch of emotions. Okay. And when we have good things or bad things happen, our brain will accept memories in a different way. And whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, when your amygdala is the part of your brain that creates your memories and stuff, if something is very traumatic or wonderfully joyous, your brain will immediately encode that memory into your memory, and it's going to collect all of the emotions and all of the feelings, all of the senses during that time. So that's why sometimes if somebody is afraid of something and I'll ask them to, hey, tell me something that you were petrified about, just think about it, their body will literally go through a panic attack, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake, what's happened or what's happening. And when you have a traumatic experience, all those bad memories, they are immediately encoded. So all the emotions. So if you were afraid during the time, you're going to always feel afraid when you think about it. Okay. If you had in the case of a sexual assault, if there was a certain song that was playing, that song could be a trigger for you. A smell of a cologne, if your perpetrator had a certain cologne or a body odor or something. Senses are very much triggers to a lot of people pertaining to PTSD. So if you find yourself reliving symptoms and getting triggered to where you easily flash back, and it's like you're right there, just like you would see a veteran that hears a gunshot and they hit the floor, okay? That's that trigger, and all those feelings are automatically set off. Now it goes the same way with a positive memory, excuse me. If I were to ask you, what was your favorite childhood memory of food? What was your favorite food? A lot of people would say, oh, maybe their grandmother's pie or whatever. And if I say, well, think about that food, think about that favorite food or that favorite time when you were a child, you're going to have a whole bunch of positive feelings. You're going to smell the pie. You're going to smile. It's going to be a positive experience. So that is your brain encoding those memories on a good note. But when something bad happens to us, when we fear for our life, our body is created in such a way that you have something called fight, flight, freeze, or fawn that you will automatically go into. It's part of your automatic nervous system, and it's built there by design because we're created to protect ourselves, to self-preserve at all costs. We're created to be able to recognize danger, and when your life is in danger or you fear or you think that your life is in danger, your body, your mind, and your brain goes into a hyperactive mode to protect you from the danger. So that's why you get the anxiety. That's why you get all those feelings, because it's letting you know that something is wrong. So when something bad happens to you and you're fearing for your life, or you're in the process of getting hurt, or something terrible is happening to you, you're being humiliated, you're being tortured, whatever it is, then you're going to have all those feelings because at the base of that is fear. So anxiety and fear is at the base of PTSD. And then that triggers a whole lot of other stuff. So it's already 6:21, and I know we've got to take our first break. And trust me, this is a subject that we could talk about for several sessions. So that's the beginning of it. So we're going to take a break for a moment. And if you got any questions, go ahead and put them up. Or if you have any feelings that you're dealing with, you don't know what they are, type them in the comments, and I'll walk you through, and we'll work together to try to help you right where you're at. So we'll be back in a few minutes after these messages.
Have you subscribed yet to the free bi-monthly digital interactive Ego magazine? No? Well, head on over to www.egoentertainmentnet.com to subscribe now. This magazine is all about supporting and showcasing excellence in communities everywhere, from music, arts and culture, relationships, education, politics, celebrities, food, and so much more. While you're flipping through the pages, just click on the buttons and social icons and you'll be taken to a whole other world behind the articles and ads. At Ego Entertainment, everyone is a star. There is something in it for everyone. And we hope you are positively impacted by what you see and will continue to support Ego Magazine. Track CBPD by Arulo. The Gallery Event Center and Ego Entertainment Network has teamed up to bring you the #1 all-inclusive VIP Premier Event Package. Get ready to drop mouths open with this one. It includes 6-hour venue rental, unlimited tables and chairs, table and chair covers, chair sashes, table centerpieces, charger plates, projector and screen, 65-inch TV, wireless microphone, surround sound, complimentary drinks, soda, water, beer, or wine. Also, travel to and from event for Ego Entertainment Network, setup and breakdown of equipment, 4 hours of services including recorded media coverage and interviews, audio and video, editing of all data captured with music background, customized graphics B-roll footage of your event, red carpet or step and repeat setup, coordination and interviews on your carpet or step and repeat. You do not want to miss out on this amazing opportunity, and the package is all inclusive for just $3,000. Book now at thegalleryeventcenter.com. That's thegalleryeventcenter.com. You can also contact the Gallery Event Center at 317-534-6399. The VIP Premier Event Package.
Hey there. If you can hear my voice, this is Pamela, host of Hospitality, here to remind you that Ego Entertainment Network has a lot for your business. Listen, honey, you need to get with it. Ego Entertainment offers various services, media coverage, red carpet services, promo interviews on air. They offer meet and greet services, honey, not to mention other event services. You want to get in gear. Ego Entertainment is empowered greatness optimized. We're now booking and spots are going fast. Ego serves the United States and all event types, honey. So if you are opening a business, having a store opening, a restaurant opening, and you want some coverage, Ego Entertainment is the way to go. Call or text 317-886-0296 or go to egoentertainmentnet.com.
All right, we are back, and I have to take a moment to go ahead and plug my sponsor for the Me Powered with Rhonda show. His name is Robert Delitis, and he is the co-author of Kill the Craving, which is a revolutionary new treatment for addiction, offering lifelong protection from relapse triggers. Now, Robert is the founder of ERP Therapy for Substance Abuse. He does all kinds of training, corporate, one-on-one, and you can reach him either on his website, erptherapy.com, or you can email him, roberpman@gmail.com. And also, My workbook is out, y'all. Okay, so I've got my workbook available. It is called Whose Eyes Do You See Yourself Through? How to Make Sense of Your Life and See More Clearly. And this is a full-size workbook. You can work through and interact with it. And I take you through some of my techniques that I work with my clients. So it's just like you're in a session with me. Now, if you would like a copy of this workbook, you can go ahead and I accept Cash App, Zelle, and PayPal. Now, if you are sending Cash App, you're going to send $25. That's going to cover the cost of the workbook and shipping. Now, the Cash App handle is $ total breakthrough center. Now, let me spell that. It's TOTALBREAKTHRU. Center, CENTER. So send $25 and go ahead and tell me your name and your address. If you would like to pay for it by Zelle or PayPal, then you're going to use the business number, which is 470-557-0515. That is my business number to Total Breakthrough Center. And that's the way that you can reach me too for one-on-one counseling, coaching, speaking. I do groups. I do all kinds of stuff worldwide. So that is the best way to reach me. But I would love for you guys to get a copy of the workbook. And if you tell me your name and stuff, I'll even sign it for you and stuff before I send it out. So we're talking today about PTSD because June is National PTSD Awareness Month. And we started talking about different types of things that could cause PTSD. And how do you know if you have PTSD? So we just covered the first one, which is reliving symptoms, okay? If you have triggers, flashbacks. Now, the next one is how do you know if you have PTSD? We kind of touched on it earlier, avoidance. So if you have some type of avoidance symptoms, an avoidance symptom is meaning you avoid places, people, events, things, activities, and even, thoughts and emotions. You avoid thinking about certain things. That is an avoidance symptom as well. And that could be an indication of you're dealing with PTSD because it reminds you of the traumatic event. So you kind of don't even think about it. All right. Another type of symptom to let you know, are you dealing with PTSD, is if you have those increased arousal symptoms like we talked about before, which would be that fight or flight, small things like loud noises, stressful things, stressful events can easily startle you. It's kind of like you're on hyper mode. You have a startle response. You're easily startled. That is an indication that you might be dealing with PTSD because your alert system is on high alert all the time. Okay. You might feel jittery, nervous. You might be real fast to blow up, especially if somebody is touching on something that is making you uncomfortable and you try to just shut it down. You can be moody, you can be paranoid, and you also will develop sometimes sleep problems because a lot of times the hardest time with PTSD is during sleep because of those nightmares, and even if you don't have nightmares, a lot of my clients will tell me, well, Rhonda, I can't sleep because my mind, I just can't shut it down. I can't quiet the noise. I've tried everything. I've taken melatonin tablets. I've tried chamomile tea, and I just can't shut off what's going on in my head. And so that is another indication. If you got racing thoughts that are keeping you from sleeping, or you're woken up or you're startled and you don't have a good sleep pattern, a sleep history, that would be an indication that you might be dealing with PTSD as well. And then also your thought process, okay, your cognitions, your natural thought process. If you start to notice you have a lot more negative thoughts, that could be an indication because if you start to have a lot of negative thoughts,
Did you know JQLM Radio provides media services like voiceovers, radio advertising, video flyers, and other audio and video services? Contact JQLM Radio today for your brand promotional needs at 317-886-0296 or email jqlmradio@gmail.com. JQLM Radio, real voices, raw entertainment, and relevant topics.
Track What You Did by CXNST on SoundCloud.com/Official Lopez. Music promoted by FreestockMusic.com.
Indianapolis, Indiana is hosting the first annual Re-Up Experience and Re-Up Awards. It's coming August 6, 2022 at the Spotlight Event Center, hosted by Florida's own hostess with the mostest, Caramel Lucas. The Re-Up Experience is an annual nationwide event that has 5 core focus areas: release, recoup, remind, remix, and repeat. It includes brunch, raffles, vendors, music, interactive panel discussion, networking mixer, bounce backology performance and presentation, re-up power circles, an award ceremony, red carpet, all-white after party, and more. Sponsorships are available, and vendor tables are available as well for only $40. Visit the website reupexperience.com. Again, that is reupexperience.com to download sponsorship details and to secure your sponsorship or vendor table. You can also contact reupexperience@gmail.com. And this year's theme, we all the way up. If you're tired of hearing the same music and content every 5, 10, or 15 minutes on air, then check out JQLM Radio for the realest, rawest, and most relevant variety of music, talk shows, and more. Start your days with a little bit of gospel and gospel rap from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All of my life, I've never known you to fail. You deliver me. 'Cause all I seem to do is coming and breaking it down with that wicked style, man. We really living it out. Don't miss it.
Then get into some hot R&B.
Say baby, what you doing? Excited.
Some hip hop.
Falling in deep with the quicksand. Flag on my hand, oh quick run. I was packing on the pound, got my
time and I heard that
a little bit of pop,
sugar, strawberries,
and some neo soul for the rest of the day. JQLM Radio, real, raw, and relevant.
holds my hand.
All right, we are back. It's raining here, and my internet just reset itself. So I had to dial back in on my phone. Thank you, Lady J, for cutting to commercial, thinking real quickly on your feet. We were in the process of talking about PTSD and different ways to recognize if you have it or not, and different symptoms and things that could happen. So we left off with talking about sleep. Sometimes your sleep will be disturbed because
Okay, guys, it looks like Rhonda
okay.
is frozen again.
Oh,
Oh, there she is.
all right. I tell you what, lady, this. They don't want us to talk about PTSD.
Man.
All right.
What happens,
Hear
y'all?
me
That's
and
what
see
happens
me.
when you're live.
Can you hear me and see me good now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. One more again. Okay. Like I said earlier, be ye ever ready. Never know when the internet's going to go out. So we were talking about how sometimes, PTSD will intrude your sleeps. And a lot of times sleep disturbances is an indicator that somebody could be dealing with PTSD, because it's that intrusive, invasive aspect of PTSD. Now I've been talking and you're on here now. So let me stop for a minute. What are some of your thoughts about PTSD before we continue on other conversations? What do you see as far as PTSD?
Um, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I mean, I've experienced it myself
Mhm.
and even still experience it. Even now, as you said, I think one of the most important things that you mentioned was that you don't necessarily have to go through something extremely traumatic for you to have PTSD.
Right.
I mean, it could be something as small as, you're used to people leaving or abandoning you.
Yeah.
And so every time that, you meet someone new, whether it be a new friend, a potential friend or a romantic partner or something, you don't let them get close
Right.
you know, um, because of your fear, that they're going to, abandon you. So it can be something as small as that.
Mhm.
That actually happens to be one of the things, that I struggle with, but, I've also experienced PTSD from a very traumatic experience. I was kidnapped at 16, so
Yeah.
kidnapped and raped, and I definitely,
Yeah.
as you said, you can shut down within the first 2
Mhm.
weeks. I was almost, like, immediate, so,
Yeah.
yeah. And, it looks like Rhonda's, frozen again, guys, so yeah, you can have
Yeah.
PTSD. Oh, there she is. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Keep going out. I don't know
let's
what
go
the heck
see.
is going on with this. So
That's what happens when there's a storm, so
yeah.
I'll just bear
So
with
it's
it.
yeah, my internet's going in and out and I'm on my phone. I'm not even trying to be on my computer right now. But the fact of what you dealt with, being kidnapped, and everything that came along with that, that is a very severe traumatic experience. And
Mhm.
um that can have a potential to last a lifetime, because even though you could be healed in certain areas, there's still going to be a possibility of that fear being there, like if you trust somebody or
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, there are, uh I will say even though it has the potential to linger for a lifetime, it's
Mhm.
up to that person as to whether or not it actually lingers for a lifetime, and I say that because, like I said, I've
Oh,
experienced some
now
very.
you're frozen.
Am I?
All right,
You
so
can't
we're
hear me?
talking yeah, it does have a potential to linger, doesn't mean that it's going to.
Mhm.
But it's a perfect storm, if you will. It has a potential to last a lifetime. Doesn't mean it's going to. However, because of the things that you went through, that is also the catalyst for bounce back, you know, and everything that you stand for, because you now are the voice for other people when you didn't have your voice. So for you, it turned into a good thing, not good thing that it happened. I'm not saying that, but
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah,
were
absolutely.
to turn it into a positive, just like I was. So now I can recognize, like, hands down, if a woman's getting molested, because that's where I came from. And so when we go through traumatic things, we may not have the power at that time, but you can process and harness it once you heal from it, and you can turn it into something good. PTSD does not mean it's a lifetime sentence,
Mhm.
you know, and there's different stages of it. But it's important that people realize that anything could be traumatic. We were just talking last week about the shootings and how that one girl she has set up for PTSD, the one that had to cover herself with blood.
Yeah.
Those kids, everything they went through that
Mhm.
were in that school,
Yeah.
they have a high possibility of developing PTSD. And within those first 2 weeks, this is going to be hard, but they may be okay for the first 2 weeks. And you kind of numb yourself because your body goes into that automatic self-preservation mode, and it may not show up till years later. That's another thing with PTSD is, sometimes people could think they're fine right after something happens. They're like, oh, okay, I'm fine. You're you're not fine.
Mhm.
It could show up years later and you don't know why you're falling apart over something. And a lot of times people have a hard time making that connection of linking it back to something that happened, because part of that avoidance thing, you avoid thinking about it, you avoid dealing with it, you avoid all of that. And a lot of families have that cultural thing where we don't talk about it in the family.
Mhm.
And that's across many cultures. There's family secrets, whether you're in an African American family, whether you're in an Italian family, whether you're in a Spanish family. There's a lot of cultures that have that family secrets you don't tell because you don't want to bring shame to the family. And that in itself is traumatic as well. So you get so used to not talking. And, you know, our body is amazing. If you're in a severe accident, like let's say something gets amputated, you don't feel it
Mhm.
because your body's going to shut off the pain at the once your body reaches the threshold that it cannot accept any more pain, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, your body shuts off. That's why we have so many people. Like there's a lot of my childhood I got to really think about. I have bits and pieces that I don't remember, Lady J, because your body shuts off the memories. It represses the memories. That's a self-preservation mode also. And
Mhm.
sometimes it won't show up till later. And you're like, oh my God, you'll get this glimpse of something that happened. It starts to give you the pieces. And that's your body kind of recognizing and knowing that you're okay to handle just a little bit of it right now. So it gives you a little glimpse of what happened. And that's an indication that there's something you need to work through, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely
Um,
agree. Um, I think a lot of people, and sometimes you can have PTSD too without something being without it affecting you directly, like, maybe you weren't even there, but you're for instance, like the shooting last
mhm,
we were talking about, the parents weren't there,
mhm.
those whose kids were unharmed and stuff like that, they still have PTSD about just sending their kids to school just because it happened. So,
Right.
it can also have, you can also have that kind of effect, and depending upon how you react to PTSD or what your symptoms are, it has the
Mhm.
ability to affect those around you just because some people don't know how to deal with it or what to say or what to do, you
Yeah.
know, when they see you,
Mhm.
exhibiting those symptoms.
Right. Right. And, now what I want to finish with and get into is not just all the things of what it is, but what do you do? How do you work your way through? Okay, so when it comes to trauma, the number one way to work through trauma is, and everybody has different opinions, but research has shown, empirical research has shown that CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy, is the number one way to get through trauma. Now, there's all different kinds of categories of cognitive behavioral therapy. But talking about it, that is one of the biggest things because you're able to work through it. Another one is EMDR, the eye movement desensitization therapy, where the counselor is going to have you retrain your brain. Is going to talk about something and go like this because what it does, and they tell you to follow the fingers, and they do it at the speed that your REM cycle would be in. Because when you get into that deep sleep and you're in that REM cycle, that stage 4 of sleep, your eyes are doing this underneath the surface. So if you are talking to an EMDR specialist, they're going to walk you through the trauma, and they're going to be going like this. And as you're looking at that, they're having you recreate a new memory. And because of this movement, it encodes into your brain because it's part of your sleep. And during the sleep is one of the best times to learn. It really is. Now, EMDR could be, it's it's typically not a brief therapy, but there is a therapy called accelerated response therapy, ART, which, if you guys remember, when I first started, I had Ann Petruis on, and she was on. Ann, no, not Ann. Shoot, what's her name? Begins with an A. Allison, not Ann. Where the hell did Ann come from? Allison. Allison. Oh, because I just saw Miss Ann at the barbecue. Allison Petruis. She is an ART therapist, which is accelerated response therapy, which is basically EMDR on steroids. Because a lot of times people depending on the type of therapist you go to, if they are a Freudian based therapist or a psychoanalytic therapist, they're going to stay in the childhood memory thing, which is good. You got to talk about it, but you don't want to stay there. You want to get out of there. So ART therapy is you're going to touch on it, but you're going to deal with, what do you do now? What are your coping mechanisms now? So that's another type of therapy that you can use to deal with PTSD. And there's all kinds of different techniques, but talking about it, desensitization, being able to sit with your fears with somebody that is qualified to walk you through those fears is going to help you get over those fears. And so that's what a lot of therapists will do. They will help the person identify their fears and sit with them. And it's kind of like an exposure therapy, like what Rob does, ERP therapy, exposure response therapy. He exposes you to the thing. And now his is substance abuse, but ERP therapy has been around for years. And that is, the more exposed you are, the more desensitized you become to it. So it doesn't have as much of a hold on you. And that's a good thing when it comes to therapy. Now, that's a bad thing when it comes to like our kids. For example, the shootings. There's so many shootings. Kids are desensitized to it, to where it doesn't even bother them anymore. And then with all your violence in the games and video games and stuff, you can become desensitized to something in a bad way to where it doesn't bother you anymore, and you become numb to it. That's not what desensitization in therapy does. Desensitization in therapy doesn't mask it. It doesn't numb you to it. It makes it to where it no longer has the hold on you that it did. And you realize that you're safe. And, there's a Chinese philosopher, I use this quote all the time, Lao Tzu. He says, if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. So fear, anxiety comes from
That's
worrying
good.
about what might happen, huh?
That's good.
He's a well-known Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu. So,
Mhm.
yeah, you can look him up, and he's got a lot of things. Lao is Lao, and Tzu is TZU or TSU. I think it's TZU, and that's just one of his sayings. But it's so true, because if you think about it, all anxiety is based on worrying about what might happen. And the thing is, it never happens the way you think it's going to happen. But we figure it out in our mind. And so you're worried that something might happen. So it's actually wasted energy.
Mhm.
Now, depression is you're ruminating over something that already has happened and you haven't been able to get past it. And a lot of times that's where veterans come from, that realm, and they're depressed and they're dealing with PTSD. I have a lot of clients. I had this one client one time in a family violence class, and he was a platoon leader. He was a young guy too. He was a platoon leader, and he had come back from Afghanistan, and he was dealing with depression because he got through the war, and his platoon, most of them made it. But here's what set him off. When he got back here, a lot of his platoon members started committing suicide. So he felt guilt because he felt he couldn't protect them. And while he was on the field, everybody, for the most part, remained alive. They, of course, had a few casualties, but he said, Rhonda, I lost more people when I came home after the war was over than during the war. And that created PTSD for him because he felt he failed them. He felt he should have been able to help them because he was their leader, even though the war was over, and he couldn't deal with that. So he's ruminating over something that happened that he doesn't have control over, but yet he's taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, I know that my friend Chantel, she talked a lot about that, about her husband dealing with that as well. He's
Hmm.
still in the army, so
Yeah.
um I know, and I had a friend that was in the army for about 25 years that dealt with that same thing. A lot of them come back suicidal and they have PTSD, some
Mhm.
from the war, some from the things that they deal with, coming
Right.
home. It's
Yeah.
it's very understandable. That's a lot of, especially those are people that you eat with, you sleep with, what I'm saying, y'all watching each other's backs 24/7. Y'all have
Oh,
developed this bond. And so when people just start, committing suicide and killing themselves one after the other, one after the other, I can only imagine how traumatizing that can be.
yeah. And then you got to think about, like, in the aspect of military people, veterans, you're on the field and you're seeing your friends and your, you know, platoon members dying and brutally, and that's traumatic. Just like the kids with the shooting in school, that leaves an image that you can't escape, because you can't, like, just close your eyes and don't see that again. And then a lot of times they will develop what is called survivor's guilt, that it should have been me. Why am I still here? um, and why did it happen to them? And their survival guilt is because they feel guilty, one, about them still being here, but two, about them feeling relieved that they're still here, and they don't know how to process that.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely the case. I had a friend who committed suicide in 2017 and she had tried
Mhm.
multiple times throughout her lifetime and very, you know, um we kind of parted ways, but then we reconnected and just
Mhm.
was on track to doing a lot of things and I was so angry.
Mhm.
Uh committed suicide again and this time succeeded because we had just talked and worked on so many plans and things
Mhm.
of that sort. And then I felt that as well because I tried to commit suicide several times too.
Mhm.
And I'm still here, so I'm
Yeah.
just like, that's a difficult thing when you feel guilty about, well, why did you allow for this person, say to be
Mhm.
able um to go through with it, but you didn't allow me to do it. Not that you want to
Not that you
place
want to
the
die.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not that you
um,
want to die,
it
but
just seems so unfair,
yeah.
so unfair. So, I get that. And then, something else that you were saying about, um, how those things, it's not something that you forget when you go through something traumatic. Like, it's not like you can just, like, forget it's not gonna be in your head, and people don't realize you can have things happen to you when you were 5,
Yep.
what I'm saying? Depending upon how traumatic it was,
Mhm.
you'll remember everything. Like,
Yep.
every time that I was assaulted, I can remember what the person looked like, what I had on,
Mhm.
all the way down to
Yep.
smells.
Yeah.
And look, like, those are things that are literally it's like taking a branding iron
Yeah. It's
and
encoded.
placing it into your brain, and it
Right.
is 100% branded into there for
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, and it involves all 5 senses. That's why all 5 senses are activated. I not too long ago, my sister sent me a picture, because I remember the gentleman, what he, I seeing a shadow. She sent me a picture, and immediately, as soon as I saw the picture, I said the man's name. I froze, Jacques, and I'm 55 years old. And when she sent me the picture, it was on my phone. I literally dropped my phone. And this happened when I was 12. I got that same creepy, eerie feeling as if it was just happening now. And that was just recently. So that lets me know I still have more things to process with that. But just seeing his face and a picture of him brought up all kinds of stuff in me. And I thought I was totally healed from that. And I'm very much healed, but that let me know I still have more work to do. because that picture triggered it. And then he had those boxers on. It was like swim trunks, but I just the way his body was in the picture, the way he was hunched over, that's the way he looked all the time, in my doorway. And so it just, I immediately froze. And yeah, so I definitely have some PTSD myself with that. And yeah, and then especially with sexual abuse, because you were talking about before when you were kidnapped and everything. um 8 out of 10 sexual abuse victims, they know their perpetrator either by an acquaintance, or they're a former or current intimate partner or spouse,
Mhm,
and very few are strangers.
mhm,
Most people know the person that did it. That's why it's such a trauma. That's why it's such a betrayal, because this is somebody you trusted or that you felt safe with, and now they violated that.
mhm.
So that's what makes it additionally a lot more traumatic. um and then with military people, they know the people because they're in the battlefields with them, and they develop that bond. And so yeah, that's what makes it harder too, because you develop that relationship. So
Yeah,
um
definitely.
I know we're winding down here because I'm looking at the time and everything stuff too, but do you have any last thoughts that you want to say as far as people dealing with PTSD? Because I know I'll have like a couple of things that I want to say, but is there anything that you want to say?
Um, Not really. I think, really, I just want people, if you do have PTSD, I mean, there's nothing to be, ashamed of. I think it's always good to acknowledge that, because if you don't acknowledge it and you try to ignore it or pretend that it doesn't exist, it'll only get worse. And that leads to other things, like the severe depression, the suicidal ideation, and sometimes even homicide. So,
Hmm.
it can actually cause psychosis,
Yep.
have you have some type of psychotic break, and that's not
Mhm.
something that you want. So I think that it's extremely important that you go see somebody, you talk to somebody, and just be honest and real with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely find somebody to talk to, some kind of therapy, somebody that is qualified in trauma and abuse. Because you definitely, that the the thing that makes PTSD go further and accelerate is isolation, because you also don't want to talk to anybody, and you could
Yeah.
be ashamed. And it's those thoughts and those feelings. That's why we call it invisible wounds, because you may not see the bruises and stuff like that, but the mental, the emotional, that's the torment that goes on the inside. That's stuff that you can't shut down in your brain. Those memories, those invasive thoughts, those, all of that stuff. That's why it is considered an invisible wound, because it could last. There's no telling how long it could last. So definitely, guys, make sure that you call somebody, get in touch with somebody, talk to somebody. And if you notice somebody, you know, displaying some symptoms, you want to reach out to them, because sometimes they need you to say, "Hey, are you okay?" And, just check on your friends, check on your strong friends especially. Check, because your strong friends are not as strong all the time. So, you definitely want to make sure that you're checking on them, because everybody that says they're okay is not okay. But you've been listening to Me Powered with Rhonda this evening. And if there's something you're dealing with, you can reach out to me directly. My business line is 470-557-0515, and I'll help you find some help in an area that you're in. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And thank you for making this the number one show for May. Let's go ahead and do it for June. Share this broadcast, y'all. It will save somebody's life. Remember, everything you need is already inside of you.